With the singles market the way it is right now for Magic the Gathering, you should not be passing up opportunities for some pretty heavy hitting Magic cards, which now look to be at a very affordable deal. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at some of these amazing relics from the past that may be just the card you're looking for. And you can buy it on the cheap. Whenever Wizards of the Coast produces a new product, a lot of players need to take a moment before they buy that new product and justify what they're buying, because some of the older cards are far better and far more affordable. Welcome back, everyone. MTG Moxman here. Thanks again for hanging out with me on my channel today. Now, what do I mean by affordable? Well, comparatively speaking, when you take a look at a lot of reserve list cards now and compare them to new sealed product that a lot of players are still buying, the prices are really skewed in the favor of reserve list cards. Now, I'm not just going to show you reserve list cards today. There are other cards I want to share with you, but the idea that the prices of some of these cards get ignored or bypassed because something new comes out is something players shouldn't be doing. Taking a position in a card that you've always wanted to have but may have put to the sidelines or forgotten about, and now you may have that chance because as you're about to step up and choose to buy a new box of Magic cards, maybe even just a bundle pack for $100, when you look and see what reserve list cards or what older Magic cards you may have passed up on recently that now look so much more affordable. So don't worry, guys, we're going to share some good cards here. We're going to look at some reserve list, some non-reserve list cards, but really, we're looking for a bargain. We're looking for a deal, and depending on how you shop and what you use as your metric to consider something a good deal, these may be just the cards you're looking for. Our first stop is going to be Storm World. Now, this is from Legends, guys. This thing's been as high as $250, and right now it's $44. So why am I even sharing this card with you? Well, there's something we have to look at. Number one, Storm World is an enchant world. It also only costs 1 red. So what do you get for this 1 red mana, and it's on the reserve list? Well, it says if any player has less than 4 cards in their hand at the end of his or her upkeep, Stormworld does 1 damage for each card that's less than 4. It said each player. Now, in today's terms, that means this is going to affect Commander. And anyone who is working with the good old rack and vices or any other thing that makes them discard cards and make sure their hands are minimal, this is the card you want to add in. And you can find this thing for about $25 for a moderately played copy. Or you can spend the big bucks, the $45, and get a near mint copy. But either way, you're not paying $200 plus US to get this card. By any metric of Commander, finding a single casting cost card that you can put into play immediately, and it's an enchantment, I mean, this thing's a bargain by anybody's standards nowadays. This is a card players should own at least 1 copy. Now, let's not forget that every card in today's video is reserve list. Our next card is from the original Modern Horizons. This is Echo of Aons. Now, anyone who looks at this card is going to see the similarities to Time Spiral. So what are we talking about for this card? As a 2 red, 4 generic sorcery, this card says each player shuffles their hand and graveyard into their library and draws 7 new cards. And unlike Time Spiral, which untaps the 6 lands, this thing has flashback. It allows you to recast it later on and then exile the card. So you're getting a lot of value for $1, and this card is only $20. It has not been reprinted yet, and it has a foil value of $145 due to the difficulty in having this card pop up as a foil. Now, that does mean that this card is probably ripe for a reprint, although not in the near future. I think with this card right now, and the playability factor, and the fact this card, its IP has not accumulated the level of wealth that Wizards of the Coast would probably like to attribute to a card like this before they reprint it, you're likely to see something else happen that makes this card a lot better before that reprint happens, which means right now for $20, this is a pretty good bargain, and if it rises later, you may be able to capitalize on those gains. Again, people tend to forget about old cards like this, and although it's not an ancient reserve list card, it has great versatility and viability, and it's under the $25 mark. This is definitely a card players should be picking up at least 1 copy to have inside of a Commander deck. Now it is time to show you Time Spiral from Urza's Saga. A very confusing name if you try to look this up because there's also a set named after it. This card is $85, moderately played if you're on TCG Player. And please remember to use my affiliate link. It's found in the description of this video. If you click that link, it takes you to TCG Player for your shopping experience. And anything you buy, we get a kickback here on the channel. So what does Time Spiral do for the player that maybe something like Echo of Aons cannot? And how can you combo these cards together? Well, if you take a closer look at this sorcery, you're going to see remove Time Spiral from the game. Each player shuffles his or her graveyard and hand into his or her library and draw 7 cards, but you untap 6 lands. Now, if you kick this in with some crazy combination cards like High Tide, this can get to be a very powerful combination card. Even Turnabout, these are just cards you need to have when you're building with this because you can do some serious damage. And all for the price of 85 bucks. This thing costs less than a Sheoldred to have, okay? We know Sheoldred's getting a reprint, but this reserve list card, it's not coming back around again. So this kind of deal on this probably won't be here forever, but right now it's a bargain basement deal depending on what you're shopping for. Now our next card comes to us from Mirage, and there's a reason that this card doesn't see a lot of play, but it has to be mentioned because if you're a mean player, this might be something you want to utilize. This is Natural Balance, and it's green. For 2 green and 2 generic, this sorcery does something that's just, it's really mean to have mid to late game. Allow me to explain, let's take a closer look at the card. As a sorcery, it says, each player controlling 6 or more lands sacrifices enough lands to reduce their total to 5. Each player controlling 4 or fewer lands may stretch out his or her library enough to bring it back up to that total of 5. So, you know what? You get to go get 5 or you got to lose down to 5. But either way, when you're building around this, when you're adding this in as actually part of your plan in a commander deck or in any other format you're playing the card in, $1.98 does seem like a bargain basement price. $8 for 4 and you'll never have to buy it again. And if you ever decide to build a land destruction, a controlling deck, and the fact nobody expects this from green because these cards just aren't made that way for green anymore, this thing is just a brutal piece of penmanship. Be prepared for cards like this because you know what? They will come around. For our next card, we're jumping back to Legends. This is All Hallows Eve, and yes, it's going to remind you of Halloween. But when we look at this card, and yes, it seems like a very expensive card at $527, don't forget, you can get an Italian copy for $225. You don't have to get the English version to enjoy the real card. So what do we get for our money? Sorcery. Put 2 counters on the card. Remove a counter during your upkeep. When you remove the last counter of All Hallows Eve, all players take all creatures from their graveyards and put them directly into play. Treat these creatures as though they were just summoned. You may choose what order they come into play. That's a very specific thing at the end of the card. What order something comes in. And yeah, that price tag does seem like a very scary endeavor at $500+. But finding a moderately played, a heavily played, you can cut 30, 40, even 50% off that price tag for English, looking for a heavily played copy, or a near mint Italian for around $250. And of course, you can get a beat up Italian copy, a moderate, heavily played, for $180 to $150. You can start scaling back depending on what your price tag is. But being able to get a real copy of All Hallows Eve from the reserve list, 4 Horsemen set, a broken card that when you're building with it, it basically means destruction to your opponent. Yeah, this isn't a card a lot of people think about right now, but it is a card you should be paying attention to. The price tag as low as it is, and understanding where this card has been in the past, can save you so much time, so much money, and allow you the gameplay you've always dreamed of having when you look at Legends, guys. It's an epic card to be able to control, and not having to pay $1,000, $2,000, yeah, trust me, this thing seems like a bargain. If All Hallows Eve was just too expensive, don't worry, I've got cheaper cards for you. How about Life Matrix from Legends? Well, when you take a look at this card and recognize that it used to be $150 and now you can find this thing for $26. If you go looking for a moderately played copy, it's $18 right now on TCG Player. Now, what do you get for your money? This 4 casting cost artifact has 4 and tap. During your upkeep, put 1 counter on a target creature. You may remove this counter at any time to regenerate that creature. Well, that's a pretty powerful, game effect. We don't see a lot of regeneration. Not to mention, it set a counter Well, that means anything that proliferates or anything that doubles counters or triple counters means you're putting a lot more than one counter on for your 4 mana. Not to mention there's ways of reducing casting costs on artifacts like this. There's a lot of synergy that can go along with this artwork card from Amy Weber back in 1994. Would you buy it for $18? How about 20 bucks? When you look at the bargain basement prices of some of these cards in reference to cards we see nowadays, yeah, they may not seem as tangible as you thought they would be, but then you look at the more current pricing and you realize these are right in your price range and they're just waiting there because everyone's ignoring it for something new and something flashy. Now for our last card of the day, I'm going to show you guys Lure of Prey. This thing is less than $5 and it's from Mirage. When you take a look at this card, it is 2 green and 2 generic. It once was as high as 20 bucks. That's a lot of money, and now we can get it for less than 5. So what are we getting for that cash? This card is an instant that says play only if an opponent successfully casts a summon spell this turn. Put a green summon card from your hand into play as though it were just summoned. Now back in the day you might be thinking it was a crawworm. We loved having crawworms or force of natures. But nowadays with all the green creatures or 5-color creature cards, or anything with green in it that you could put into play that may cost 7, 8, 9, however insane mana supply you want to think about, you can put that green creature into play. This card does it for 4 mana. It does it at instant speed, and it can be done when nobody expects it because, again, this isn't the type of spell we see from green anymore. And the fact we can utilize this card to get really big things out that shouldn't be able to cast that cheaply means this thing can come out when you least expect it. Less than $5 for this card. Now guys, I'll be honest. When you look at how these cards are utilized and how you're going to build them, some will seem more appetizing than others, but the closer you look at some of these cards and recognize you're probably already using similar cards now, and these cards might just add a little bit more synergy that might be a better price than you expected. There's lots of reasons to always take a look at older cards you may have forgotten about or just neglected because you've always assumed the price is too high. So I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Slam down some comments if you have something to say to the Moxman. And of course, I look forward to talking to you all tomorrow in another video because you know what? We like to put out content every day here on the channel. So thanks again for stopping by, guys. Have an awesome day today. Oh, here we are at the end again. These are the credits, the amazing people who support this channel each and every day. So thanks again to the amazing patrons on this channel, to my YouTube membership members, to the regular viewers who stop by. Because of the patrons here on the channel, daily uploaded content is made possible. So because of those viewers, I put out stuff every single day, guys. Thanks a lot for supporting the channel. Thanks for being here. You're here? Again? Haven't you guys had enough? Didn't you get enough information for the day? Isn't there somewhere else you should be right now? I know right now in your head, you're having an internal monologue about what you're supposed to be doing. Welcome back to the Ramble Jamble, guys. So, there's one card I didn't get a chance to mention because the video was getting a little bit long. I was also going to cover Eureka. Now, Eureka from Legends for 2 green, 2 generic, being able to put all your permanents into play. And going back and forth with your opponents, putting them all into play one at a time means you can do crazy stuff as long as you engineer it and build it the right way. This card is, used to be like $2,000. Then it went down to like 1,000, then 900, 800. You can have it for like 500 bucks. Cheaper if you want a moderately played. An Italian copy for 200 and change. It's nutty out there how cheap some of these cards are. People forget the Italian versions, by the way. If you want a real card that's not a proxy, that's the way to go if you just want to have the real deal. To know it's a real card. I know a lot of players do want the real thing. But buying old cards like that for that price tag, less than a dual land, insane to think it's that way. Anyway, thanks a lot for stopping by. There's tons of engineering stuff you can do with these cards in Commander. It blows my mind to think of some of the combinations you can do. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for being here, guys. I'm going to drink some coffee, go do stuff. The way Wizards of the Coast thinks they can overcharge us makes these cards look so much better if you just take a look at them. So much better than what they're charging us.